At the beginning of the movie, a girl was fast asleep as she waited for a call. That girl was 𝐦𝐸, and she was there to pick up a used car that has been damaged by a case. At first glance, 𝐦𝐸 looked like any other girl with green hair and a few tattoos on her hands. However, no one knew who 𝐦𝐸 really was as a professional driver. She worked at a waste car factory for a man named Mr. Beck. Their main job was not only processing waste cars, but they could also deliver or send anything that couldn't be sent through the mail. Thus, they could send anything in any way. Since every mission they did was considered dangerous, it made sense that they charged a lot of money for their services. The truth was that 𝐦𝐸 has never failed to complete a mission, and that night, Mr. Beck sent 𝐦𝐸 to pick up two people from a hotel. When the two men saw that the driver was a girl, they weren't sure at first if they would get to their destination, because they only looked at how 𝐦𝐸's physical appearance without knowing her driving skill. The two men finally decided to go with 𝐦𝐸 because they thought their time was running out and they had no other choice. Not far away, another car was watching how they moved, but it didn't bother 𝐦𝐸. She put her foot on the gas and tried to get away from the car that was following them. After getting off the main road and away from the people chasing her, 𝐦𝐸 quickly drove between parked cars and shut off the engine to hide. When they felt safe again, they went on their way. However, when they got to the intersection, they were again stuck between two cars. Again, 𝐦𝐸 used the same trick to fool the people who were after her. They were getting chased by only one car left. 𝐦𝐸 had an idea for a moment as she watched the train go by. She raced the car at full speed and then drove dangerously to cut off the train tracks. They finally got away from the people who were after them, and 𝐦𝐸 got paid by the client as stated in the contract. Aside from Mr. Beck, there was an Indian man named 𝐫𝐸𝐸 who worked at the factory. He was a mechanic who usually worked on vehicles for missions. At the same time, somewhere else it was said that there was a scandal in professional baseball. This was about a gambling site that was thought to have rigged the games, and a TV host named 𝐫𝐸𝐸 was the person most likely to be involved. Not only did it have something to do with it, but it was also known that 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸 ran a gambling site for a long time. 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 was getting ready to leave the country with his son 𝐫𝐸 because of this. He paid an agent named 𝐫𝐞𝐜𝐚 on purpose to get a fake passport and got into the port. 𝐫𝐞𝐜𝐚 suggested that he used a special delivery service that would make sure he got where he needed to go, so that 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 didn't get caught. Joe, who was the leader of a gang, has heard about 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸's scandal. He was very mad at 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 because he used to try to get players to cheat in games. Also, everyone knew that 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 has the key of the safe box. Joe felt betrayed by 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸, who not only stole the money from the safe, but also took the keys to the bank where 30 billion won, about $28 million, was kept for gambling. 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 told Joe that if he followed him, he would break the security lock. Even so, Joe only cared about the money, and he would keep looking for 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 no matter what. The next day, Mr. Beck gave 𝐦𝐸𝐸 a special task. He wanted her to bring someone to the port for him to pick up. 𝐦𝐸𝐸 planned to help with this mission after she found out that her client was 𝐫𝐞𝐜𝐚, because the story said that 𝐫𝐞𝐜𝐚 has used and tricked them many times to do dirty business outside of the agreement. However, Mr. Beck kept saying that 𝐦𝐸𝐸 would do a job for a big pay. That made 𝐦𝐸𝐸 felt bad to say no again because she was indebted to Mr. Beck. She finally agreed to take on this mission, and 𝐦𝐸𝐸 would be in charge of the delivery. But if it was not what was agreed upon, she would go right away and call off the mission. While 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 was in the baseball field, he and his son hid. Soon after, he heard a car pull into the field and thought it was someone would pick him up, but he was wrong. Joe and his group were the ones who got there first. 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 locked the door right away and gave his son 𝐫𝐸𝐸 the key to the bank safety. He told 𝐫𝐸𝐸 to run away toward the car with a license plate 6162 that was already calling them from outside the field. Before he left, 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 switched his cell phone with his son's smartwatch and told 𝐫𝐸𝐸 to get out of the house through the window. Outside, 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 didn't know that 𝐫𝐸𝐸 took the security key away from 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸. He thought that 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 still had it. He kept torturing 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 with his men, even though 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 could no longer fight them alone. Actually, 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸's action was just to waste time so that 𝐫𝐸𝐸 could go to the pickup car without being stopped. 𝐸𝐸𝐸 was worried because this was the first time she's had a client who was so late compared to the time set by agreement. When Joe looked at their passports, he saw that 𝐫𝐞𝐜𝐚 didn't want to go alone. Instead, he wanted to go with his son. He then got his men to look for 𝐫1, but when he saw 𝐫1, 𝐸𝐸 didn't want to open the door because her client had told her it was 𝐫𝐞𝐜 and not a kid like this. 𝐸𝐸 finally wanted to help 𝐫1 when she found out that armed gangsters were looking for him. 𝐫𝐞𝐜𝐚 was still alive and he saw his son's car driving toward Joe. Just as they were about to crash into each other, 𝐫𝐞𝐜𝐚 attacked Joe's car, causing him to lose control and crash. In the end, 𝐫𝐞𝐜𝐚 died because of what he did. This made Joe so furious. He called his friends right away to help them. When 𝐸𝐸 felt safe, she put her car in a garage. She didn't say anything and had no intention of talking to 𝐫1. 𝐫1 still went wherever 𝐸𝐸 went. He had nowhere else to go. 𝐸𝐸 was the only hope of 𝐫1. Also, remembering what his father said, telling the police was pointless because the police were also run by gangsters. 𝐫1 thought that 𝐸𝐸 was the only one who could save him now. 𝐫1 was willing to give 𝐸𝐸 all the money she needed if she really wanted it, as long as 𝐸𝐸 was willing to stay with him until his father called. At the time, 𝐫1 didn't know that his father had died in an accident before this. 𝐸𝐸 was confused, so she told Mr. Beck that their plans fell apart and they were still kids. The only way for 𝐫1 to get the shipping fee was with the money he was carrying. 𝐸𝐸 planned to leave 𝐫1 to someone, as Mr. Beck told her to do. But when 𝐸𝐸 met the person, she was worried because she knew the person sold drugs a lot. On the way, 𝐸𝐸 thought, should I do this or not? She also looked in the boy's bag and was surprised to find so much money in it. 𝐸𝐸 also knew that 𝐫1 was involved in a major crime case that could put his life in danger. She ran back to find out where 𝐫1 was. 𝐫1 thought at the time that he needed to go to the restroom because he was scared and planned to escape through the window before 𝐸𝐸 found him. Joe was a leader of a gang, but he was also a captain in the police force. He planned to use CCTV footage and told the police what to do to get 𝐸𝐸 arrested. He would do this by making a false report that 𝐸𝐸 killed 𝐫𝐞𝐜𝐚 and took his son. Joe's job as captain was at risk if he caught the two targets in public because it could show that he was a gang leader. All of this was done so that they could get 30 billion won, which they would not have gotten if they had been police officers for the rest of their lives. Thus, Joe put everything on the line to try to get the money back. Since it was getting late, 𝐸𝐸 chose to hide in a hotel while she rested. She put the phone in that room and touched with the phone in another room on purpose. In the meantime, one of Joe's close friends went to 𝐫𝐞𝐜𝐚's headquarters. The man attacked everyone in the room without saying much, especially 𝐫𝐞𝐜𝐚, who had to get struck repeatedly by blunt instruments. Joe learned that 𝐫𝐞𝐜𝐚 was the one who helped 𝐫𝐞𝐜𝐚 get away. After being threatened, 𝐫𝐞𝐜𝐚 finally said something about a special delivery service with a professional driver. Every time they made a delivery, they changed the license plate and the car so it couldn't be tracked. But at this point, the delivery service couldn't be contacted because Mr. Beck has already anticipated it. Joe tried to find another way. Using the police's wide reach, he organized his members to find people who have stolen cars in the area. At the same time, 𝐸𝐸 was using just a screwdriver to steal cars in the parking lot of a shopping center. When Joe heard about this theft, he immediately told his people to go and catch the responsible person. Inside the hotel, 𝐫1 watched the news and finally knew that his father has died. He was so sad that he couldn't stop crying. The police who were looking for them could hear the sound of crying. But when they went into one of the rooms where the sound was coming from, the glass that was put on the doorknob on purpose broke without anyone being in it. 𝐸𝐸 used the phone to listen to the sound of breaking glass coming from the room next to theirs. She did this to find out if someone was after them in this hotel. Finally, they tried to leave the place by pretending to be a cleaning service. But, unfortunately, they ran into Joe, who was suspicious of the cleaning service girl. When they were in the elevator, Joe pressed the emergency stop button right away to keep them from running away. Joe showed the gun he was carrying and said he would pay for the delivery if 𝐸𝐸 gave the kid to him. Even so, 𝐸𝐸 casually said that his salary as a police officer would not be enough to support him. When Joe heard those words, he didn't think twice about going after 𝐸𝐸. He just wanted to take what 𝐫𝐞𝐜𝐚 had taken from him. 𝐫1 bit Joe right away when he found out that she was the one who killed his father. 𝐸𝐸 took advantage of the chance right away to grab the knife out of Joe's hand. All she had to do to help them get away from the police. 𝐸𝐸 didn't understand why not only the mafia, but also the police chased 𝐫1 this time. 𝐫𝐸 showed Joe a security key, which was likely what Joe was talking about. When 𝐸𝐸 found out that the car they were driving was being watched, she decided to steal another car for them to use. Joe tried to figure out who 𝐸𝐸 was using the fingerprints he found. Because 𝐸𝐸 did not have a criminal record, her information was not in the police database. This made things hard for them. So 𝐸𝐸 has never been caught in all this time. On the other hand, Joe did not think that this case would be looked into by National Intelligence or BN. Han was the agent in charge at that time. Han's agent told him that 𝐸𝐸 was from a family that was originally from North Korea. Her family died, so 𝐸𝐸 left on her own. However, Han's agent didn't totally believe the police report that said 𝐸𝐸 killed someone and took a child. If it was looked at 𝐸𝐸's background, it was not likely that she would do something like that. On the way, 𝐫𝐸 told the story of how he once tried to find his mother by dialing each number on his father's cell phone one by one. But no one would say that she was 𝐫𝐸's mother, and only one of the people he talked to cried when she heard 𝐫𝐸's voice. So 𝐫𝐸 thought the woman was probably his mother. He also asked 𝐸𝐸 to take him to the woman's house by pretending to send flowers so he could find out her address. Because it was a nightclub, only 𝐸𝐸 could go inside. However, when 𝐫𝐸 met the woman in question, she said that she was not 𝐫𝐸's mother and that everything was just a mistake. But 𝐸𝐸 thought the woman lied and worried 𝐫𝐸 after hearing about 𝐫𝐸 death because she seemed nervous. 𝐫𝐸 planned to call her back when he knew that the woman was not his mother. However, 𝐸𝐸 immediately took 𝐫𝐸's phone and broke it. She finally told him that the woman was 𝐫𝐸's biological mother and that she didn't want to meet him or be his mother. 𝐸𝐸 worried unconsciously about what would happen to 𝐫𝐸 if he stayed with a woman like that. While they were arguing, Joe's friends and a gang of thugs came up from behind and attacked 𝐸𝐸. They took 𝐫𝐸 away and 𝐸𝐸 had to deal with the cruel man. After getting out of the way, 𝐸𝐸 decided to burn her own jacket. This would activate fire detection and extinguishing system in the parking lot, which would cause 𝐫𝐸's car went into a skid. The driver was then attacked by 𝐸𝐸, who broke the man's leg. When the assassins chased them again, 𝐸𝐸 used everything she knew to save both of their lives. In the end, she managed to outwit the man who had to jump with his car from the top floor. 𝐸𝐸 was hurt so badly that she couldn't drive anymore and passed out in the middle of the road. 𝐫𝐸 tried to get help from every passing car because he was worried about 𝐸𝐸, but no one was willing to help until 𝐫𝐸 really wanted to go to the middle of the road, where a car finally wanted to stop. 𝐫𝐸 was promised a lot of money, which was why the woman wanted to help them. Right now, the safety of the two of them was the most important thing to him. Meanwhile, Agent Han got information from witnesses about whose car 𝐸𝐸 and 𝐫𝐸 were riding in, and then he called Joe again. Agent Han thought there was something strange about this case because 𝐫𝐸 should have run away instead of saving 𝐸𝐸 if this was a kidnapping case. So Agent Han thought this was not a case of kidnapping or people trafficking. So he demanded that Joe show proof right away if 𝐸𝐸 was proven guilty. Joe knew about all the crimes that were almost going to be exposed, so he decided to get rid of the evidence by killing his own confidant, who was still alive but in the hospital after they failed to catch their target. Han, who was suspicious, told his team right away to go to the crime scene and look for evidence of 𝐫𝐸's death. As for 𝐸𝐸, she woke up somewhere in the end. 𝐸𝐸 couldn't help but smile when she saw 𝐫𝐸 asleep next to her. She didn't think that such a little kid would be able to take such good care of her. 𝐸𝐸 called Mr. Beck to tell him that 𝐫𝐸 had nowhere else to go and that the mafia and the police were both after them, where the head of the mob and the mafia leader were the same person. So this problem was getting worse, which showed that Mr. Beck had nowhere to go where he could be safe. 𝐸𝐸 was asked to bring 𝐫𝐸 to their factory and then go to another country using a fake passport for Mr. Beck. At the same time, BIN members found 𝐫𝐸's smartwatch buried at the place where 𝐫𝐸 died. It turned out that 𝐫𝐸 used the smartwatch to secretly record all of his conversations with Joe before he died. Finally, Agent Han's suspicions were right. Captain Joe wasn't looking for a killer. He was the one who killed him. When Mr. Beck was making 𝐫𝐸's passports that night, Joe's group sneaked into the factory. At that time, 𝐫𝐸 and 𝐸𝐸 were in another room and 𝐸𝐸 was still on her way to the factory. The gangsters cruelly bit Mr. Beck, who could still turn on the speaker to let 𝐸𝐸 and 𝐫𝐸 knew they were in danger. 𝐸𝐸 put 𝐫𝐸 in the trunk of the car and tried to help Mr. Beck at the same time. Mr. Beck didn't say anything, even though he was badly beaten because he wanted to protect the people he already thought of his family. But when Mr. Beck saw that Joe also caught and beat 𝐸𝐸, He finally spoke up when he realized that Joe was looking for the bank security key. He said that he kept the key in a safe that used a combination and Mr. Beck's fingerprint. After the safe door was opened, Mr. Beck grabbed a gun and shot at the two gangsters. Joe fought back and horribly killed Mr. Beck. Joe was able to get the key of bank security from inside the safe. They looked for 𝐸, hiding spot, and found him. Then they took him to Joe. Nearby, 𝐸, who heard the sound of gunshots, was sneaking into the factory area. From the window, she could see that 𝐸 was being held captive, and she was shocked to see Mr. Beck already lying on the ground covered in blood. 𝐸 started to feel sad, but she realized that she still had a chance to save 𝐸 as she pulled out the screwdriver she always had with her. She turned off the electric switch purposely. This gave 𝐸 a chance to kill Joe's members one by one at a time by stabbing their back with a screwdriver. After escaping through the window, 𝐸 looked for 𝐸 was hiding. She also found that 𝐸 was planning to leave the area around the factory. Unfortunately, Joe got in the way of their plans again. Joe held 𝐸 as a hostage and asked 𝐸 why she was willing to give her life for the kid. In the past, 𝐸 tried hard to get out of North Korea and change her life. Now, she was wasting her life trying to protect this little boy. Deep down, 𝐸 started to feel that she and 𝐸 suffered the same fate. They were both left alone by their families and had no one to help them. 𝐸 was willing to fight to save 𝐸 because 𝐸 had become an important part of her life. When Joe threw 𝐸 into the water, 𝐸 lunged at him, even though she had already been shot, and kept stabbing him in the heart with a screwdriver. Joe didn't want to die alone, so he handcuffed his hand and 𝐸's leg. 𝐸 felt like she had no other choice, so she pushed 𝐸 to save him right away. Agent Han and his team finally got to the scene of the crime. 𝐸 kept asking Agent Han to save 𝐸 because he didn't want to lose, but the agent would no longer be able to help and 𝐸 would have to drown in the sea of night. Time passed so quickly, 𝐸 was studying in a different place. When he first started school, he didn't like it. However, as time went on, he made a lot of friends. 𝐸 had to live in an orphanage because he lost a parent. Azif was getting better and still worked at a waste car factory. One day, 𝐸 was so busy studying that he forgot that the bus that picked him up was already gone. Whether he liked it or not, he had to walk home. Shortly after, a car kept following him as he walked. He decided to follow the car because he was interested, but there was no one in it. How surprised he was when a girl who turned out to be 𝐸 talked to him. 𝐸 missed 𝐸, even though he thought she was gone. It was clear that 𝐸 had made it through the incident.